Hi, everybody. Welcome to GK4FREE podcast, episode 3. My name is Hunter Gilstrap, and I'm here with Will Marshall. Welcome to the mobile studio, where I've recorded the first 2 episodes. And Will, where are you coming to us from?
I'm in my garage, my parents' garage.
Will is in his parents' garage. We couldn't be more organic, we'll say, than we are right now. Like I said, this is GK4FREE. This is your home in the world of free media, free social media for valuable goalkeeping content. What's cool about today, this is our very first one that we're trying video. This video might be really bad, but our audio has been really bad for the first 2 episodes, and we've had a decent response there too. So thank you. Now maybe you're watching on YouTube, or you're just listening again on the podcast. So my name is Hunter Gilstrap. I am goalkeeping coach, director of goalkeeping for the Riverhounds Academy, former pro team goalkeeper coach for the Riverhounds, former 12-year pro goalkeeper. And this is Will Marshall. Will, introduce yourself.
Will Marshall, goalkeeper coach for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds Academy, former Pitt men's soccer, Westchester men's soccer, and current personal trainer as well.
Very cool. And so Will's always going to be, until he gets tired of doing this, like I said last time, he's going to be our co-host here. So, like I said, welcome to GK4FREE. Today, I think our topic, we'll like to introduce the topic in just a minute. First, let's just kind of talk about what you've been up to, Will. I was following your socials and saw that you got into something cool recently. Why don't you tell us about what you've been up to?
Yeah. So last night I went to an American Ninja Warrior gym in Whitehall, near the county airport, and so I have a friend, Becca Marshall. She's also a personal trainer, no relation to me, but she works with somebody that works at him who also works at Orange Theory, and that's how we got in there. And so it was kind of my second time messing around with that stuff. First time would be the Spartan race that I ran last fall, and it was really cool, like to apply some fitness, hanging on stuff and running up walls and everything like that. And so it was a great time. My hands are smoked, but it was awesome.
Blisters?
No, I burnt one of my fingers sliding down the wall, but other than that, I'm good. Like nothing, no open wounds.
So not quite as bad as a normal day of Olympic weightlifting.
No, nothing like that. But
I was so impressed. I just saw in your story. I saw you. I've watched probably more episodes of American Ninja Warrior than I'd like to admit, but
yeah,
the wall always seems to be what gets everybody. And you just, I don't know if that was your first try or your 12th try, but you made it look real easy. That was a big one too.
Yeah, so they had us do the small one first, and then they had us kind of like they were coaching us up. Everyone there was really supportive. It was awesome. There were 3 other guys there that were like legit. Like the one guy had an invite to American Ninja Warrior on it would have been season 12, I think, but it got canceled because of the coronavirus, which is a bummer for him.
Okay, that is a bummer.
Yeah, but they were all so supportive, man. They were all so hyped when I got up to the top, and everything was great. And I think that was probably approaching my 10th try. So.
Okay. So is this going to be a transition into a new area of interest and exploration?
Maybe. They actually told me that I'm a natural and I should compete. So I might have to take them up on that and just see what happens.
That's so crazy. I know nothing about that world.
Oh, me neither. Besides the fact that it's a show, and they're explaining it to us, and there's all these and of course, but you just don't think about it. There's all these terms and the way they set up training and transitioning obstacle to obstacle, it's a whole thing that you would know nothing about because you only see American Ninja Warrior as a TV show. It's never explained how you end up on that show. But it's a whole thing. It's a lot.
Like everything else.
Right, exactly.
and I'm sure a lot of that popped up as the show got more and more popular.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. I don't know that maybe I'm a little too old. I feel like I see a back injury in that for me if I were to go out there and try and run around and do that stuff. But maybe I'll take my kids. Maybe I'll take my kids if it's still a thing in 5 years, 6 years. Well, cool. Let's get a little back on topic here. We'll get into get into goalkeeping. We'll get into what we're here to do. So last time we talked about first two podcasts. So we're kind of we're going to go through this almost the same way that I kind of teach. If I were to have in our River Islands Goalkeeper Academy, we kind of go like through a 6 or 8 or a 15-week program, and we kind of go foundationally from the bottom up. So we started off with, in our first podcast, just talking about what we are, what we do. So if you want to learn more about that, go listen. Second podcast, we got into some guts of some technique. So we started talking about lateral movement and body shape and sort of this new twist on lateral movement, where you're not leading with your foot. We're not going to go into the detail there. Go back and listen. And then with body shape, just kind of gave sort of a general idea of, especially in shot stopping, how we want to try to do everything in a way that keeps our upper half, our upper body, our head and our hands out front, leaning forward kind of from the waist. So today we're going to go into something that for me is just as important, if not more important than that. And the funny thing about this is something that I didn't really know anything about on the level that I think is helpful until I was probably 26 or 27 maybe even. So we're going to talk about getting set positions, set timing. Will, can you hear me as it's like downpouring?
You're all good.
Okay, cool. So hopefully my microphone doesn't get jacked up too bad for that. Oddly enough, our connection is still good. Okay, so back on topic. Will, why don't you take kind of a minute or two to kind of let us know what getting set, what set timing, what setting and set shape, all that stuff kind of means to you in your game and your experience.
So I want to preface with a question. We're getting into loading today, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about all the little stuff that nobody talks about.
Okay. Yeah. So, with setting and I should think of how to begin, I guess.
Well, I have sort of a outline here that we'll go through. So, just give kind of your 30-second from a 10,000 foot view of kind of what it means to you.
Right. So I actually briefly in episode 2 I started talking about this and you had to stop me when you go too far. And so in that episode I talked about how before I knew what a set position was, I did all kinds of different stuff. I would set differently depending on I guess how I felt, in game for game or whatever. And then it wasn't until I was ended up at the Hounds Goalkeeper Academy where, I learned the gunslinger, which is, you don't coach it the same way as you used to. And, we talked about that too.
Yeah. I even think that I was doing that wrong then. I think I was using the wrong terminology for another way of setting and calling it the gunslinger, but we'll maybe talk about that another time. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, and so, I really had to, make it uncomfortable in the beginning, setting with my hands out in front, leading with my hands. And so, a lot of the time I was setting with my arms straight out in front of me. And I think that was my way of kind of fighting that want to bring my arms back. And I know we're going to cover that and stuff like that. But, I really had to force that so that when I did pull my arms back, my elbows still had some space between, in between me and my body. And so, and I think once I kind of nailed that stuff down, it became, then loading came into play where it was, timing the springs to where you can get the best reaction, in terms of, facing actual shots or, whatever, attempts on goal. And so, from a 10,000 foot view.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So, all right. So what we're going to start with, I'm going to kind of where most coaches, I think, even at a youth level or whatever, would start. Right. So we're talking about the physical way that a goalkeeper would position their body to get ready to make a save. And yes, that is an important part of it. And that, more or less is just kind of reinforcing what we talked about with body shape. So yeah, there's a physical component to it. I think the way that I view the position now, I think it's just really important that as much as possible you can get it as close to like a natural athletic position as possible. So like anybody that's done any work with a strength and conditioning coach or in that even play other sport, right? You kind of know what an athletic position is. So an athletic position is just hard, very little. Will was touching on stuff that we do. I still am big on that. I think it's important you have a bend in your elbows. But I'm not as strict about that stuff as I used to. And I try to make that a little bit more of a natural thing depending on how each keeper sort of naturally moves. So that's kind of the shape, right? Think athletic position, and we'll talk about the height and how tall the goalkeeper stands with the set, maybe a little bit today, but I've more over the past couple years gone to goalkeepers kind of standing in a natural height, a taller height than getting low. And I think getting low was such a thing when I was growing up, and it still is with a lot of coaches. And I think as range gets closer and stuff starts to happen closer to the goalkeeper, you do have to find a way to get lower because you have less time to make those saves and get down. But I still think that a more natural athletic height ends up actually being a lot more valuable, and you can move a lot better. I honestly believe that. So that's the position. And I don't think a lot of coaches would really disagree with what a set shape or position looks like. I think what gets difficult to kind of grasp conceptually is this idea of timing and loading. And I think that's kind of where it becomes a thing. So I'm going to let Will talk in a minute, but I just have, like, for me and my personal experience, so I played at I think the highest level you can play at the Division I level. I went to Clemson for 4 years when they were an ACC championship school, and we lost in the Elite Eight my freshman year in round of 16, my second year, and surrounded by national team goalkeepers, national team players, and great coaches. And I think I was exposed to really, really high level of training that I hadn't had any experience before that, being a kid from South Carolina who walked onto the team. And then I played at the College of Charleston after that for my last year. Still pretty high level, but not quite the same. But in all that time, getting set was never discussed. It maybe briefly mentioned that you just need to be set. You just need to be set with my context. Through my time at College of Charleston, and through my time, as a pro, my rookie year at Miami FC, and then on to Cleveland for a few years. Same thing there, over to South Africa. Never discussed about in detail, only to finally in 2010, I get into an MLS preseason camp, and I get to work with Mike Toshak at Toronto FC. And he's the first coach that has ever talked about getting set. And not even in a loading context, more of just a kind of stopping yourself and being balanced and still. And that introduction, and that really changed my game pretty massively in a short amount of time. I found before that that I was always late, and being late is something that we're probably going to talk about first. Will, what's that kind of, does that mean anything to you when we talk about being late? Does that resonate with you at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, so recently, about a month ago, I actually went over it was a Premier League highlight video with one of the keepers from BTEC. And
Okay.
it was like the best 25 saves of the 2018-2019 season or something like that. And
Right.
a lot of the best saves were off of headers. And, it's the keeper deciding not to go, dropping back to the line, and their load coming down from that load at the moment the ball hits the striker's head. And it's perfect.
Right.
being late, just being slightly behind, having
Right.
just, maybe a half second behind that contact with the striker's head puts you behind the play.
Right. Yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to describe it. And here's how I'll kind of make it practical and applicable to everybody. If you have no idea what we've been talking about up until this point, like what he's talking about, listen to this, and this will hopefully have you have a little light bulb moment. If you have a chance to, at any point, watch video of yourself making saves, or watch video of the goalkeeper that you coach making saves, and make sure in the frame you can also see the server, you can see the ball being kicked as well. Okay? Slow it down, right? Slow-mo as much as you can. So this idea of late and this idea of loading is that the goalkeeper's feet are back on the ground, balanced in that athletic position, either just as or slightly before the ball is kicked, or in Will's example, the ball is headed. Okay? What you'll find, even at really high levels, and especially if this is something that the goalkeeper's never worked on or been exposed to or talked about, is that if you watch that video slowed down, what you'll see is if you've never thought about set timing or setting on time or loading, it typically happens that even if you are standing in a set position, totally still, not moving, ready for a shot, with balance, whatever, good to go. You've got your perfect set position. Ball will be struck, boom. And even though you don't realize it, after the ball's struck, your body weight's going to come up and down. With some keepers, it looks like a hop. With some keepers, it looks like their legs kind of split wider. And then after that happens, that up and down, then we'll begin to move towards the ball, right? So that's not good, right? I mean, obviously, if there's something that's happening with our body where it has to prepare itself to move, it's eating up our time to make saves. And so when we say late, you're late, right? It means that you were most likely up in the air, either after the ball struck, you started to go up in the air, or while the ball was struck, you were up in the air and then had to come back down and then move after the ball's already traveling in your direction, right? That's the kind of the idea here. And so, yes, setting is a physical position. It is a way to position yourself to make a save. But more important to that, and I think if you're really looking to be an effective and an efficient and a high-level shot stopper, you've got to start thinking about this idea of being set on time. And it's tricky to be on time because just like you can be late, you can be early. And if you set and load too early, and then you're back down to ground, and then the whole thing starts over again. So if you set too early, you load early, then the ball strike, then you're going to load again, even though you don't think that you're doing it. And that's why I'd call that like a double set or even a triple set. And there are some coaches that completely differ with this, and some coaches think this is too complicated and too hard for any goalkeeper to get a handle on. So a lot of goalkeeper coaches will approach this from the other end of the spectrum, and they understand the concept, right? They understand that there is a loading that happens that you need to be on time. And I've done this too with goalkeepers that struggle with this because some can't get this concept. Some can't master it, and that's totally okay. So the other end of the spectrum is kind of this idea of this kind of rapid bouncing ground contact, this kind of hopping rapid fire set, which works really well too. And it works well because it's hard to screw up, right? It's hard to be late. It's hard to be early. Even if you're either one of those things, because it's such a little right kind of set, you're probably going to be in the neighborhood of loaded when the ball is struck. You know what I mean? But for me, that was just never my preference. I always like to try to work with goalkeepers to get them thinking about set timing. And we'll talk about thinking about set timing and some things you can do to figure that out in just a second. We'll add some 2 cents to that part.
Yeah, you were bringing up the multiple loads versus just one. That's exactly where my head was at, and I was wondering if you're going to go that way. So coming up with the hounds, like with you, like, yeah, it was always, we just taught that one single load and trying to time it well. And then at Pitt with, Mike Bohonic, he was more of a proponent of the multiple loads. And I've done both. When I went to Westchester, I messed around with doing the quick ones, and I noticed that I was able to do it. I don't know. I used it to kind of wake myself up. I guess I would always do it in warm up. Those initial vault was always kind of just bouncing around a little bit, but it never really stuck.
Yeah.
Later on, when I'd go into play or whatever, like I noticed that it never happened again for me. I would always just do one or maybe two, but never that full out.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times you don't have time because typically in a game environment, a shot stop in a live play, you're typically adjusting your position left to right, up to back, so you don't have a lot of time to get to that spot and then you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even if that's your approach, and again, it's still going to work pretty well. It's an effective technique, and we've used it with the pro guys that we had. Some of them that worked better than trying to figure out, the timing. I don't think it's quite as efficient or as good, and I think you can get to a really elite level, an effective level of shot stopping when you can get guys to start thinking about their timing and what it means to be on time.
Yeah, being like consciously aware of it. Like you said, from a development aspect, like everybody does it, they just might not know they do it yet. And
right.
Once you're aware that it's happening and that it needs to happen, then you can kind of have a lot more control over it. And so, the kids that don't know they do it, once they are, you tell them like, hey, like you're going to do it no matter what. You just need to be the one who decides to do it, not your brain.
Right.
Like some improvement in the timing.
Sure. Yeah, sure. And I think there's also just like the breathing stuff, and I don't, we may not have time to touch on breath today, but just like the breathing stuff we touched on last time, like if you can let your air out as you load and kind of your weight comes back down, if you can let that air out, you go loose and relax. I think the other part of the kind of the rapid fire set is that it creates the same level of sort of tension and stress, right, that sucking your air in does as you load, right? So it makes you tense, it makes you tight. And for me, being tense and tight means you're not going to react as well. You're not going to move as efficiently. Your reflexes probably won't be as quick as they could possibly be. So that's, and again, this is great stuff to talk about, and I can't wait till we have a guest in here that comes from a different background and has a different point of view, so we can get some different perspectives on this sort of thing. Because you definitely see keepers at the highest level do it all kinds of different ways. What was my other thing I was going to say here? I think on that point, the last kind of thing that I would say with that is again, I never really it's still, even the whole time through my playing career, never really had a coach talk about set timing. That was something that I kind of, not saying that I figured it out and I'm this super smart guy, but kind of developed and figured out on my own. And then once I figured it out as a player, I started throwing it in when I was coaching and found that it was super helpful and super valuable. So we're going to go into now, what does it mean to set on time, to have good set timing, and how do you develop it? And Will, I'm going to put you on the spot. How do you be on time? What do you do? How do you figure it out? What's going to make you be able to set on time?
Well, I would say you have to know the cues as to what's going on.
You're so well coached.
So, if you see an attacking player making his or her way towards the goal, and they take their prep touch, and as their striking foot goes back, that is your cue to start your load. And then as they're striking the ball, if it's perfect, you want to be coming down as they make contact with the ball. Like I said with the headers before.
Right. You got it. It's cues, right? It's cues. And there's no secret to it. Like, shooter has a progression they go through before they strike the ball. Some are faster than others. I think a lot of that depends on body type, the way they're striking the ball, right? But everybody has to go through this wind up, preparing, head drops, leg swings back, right? And everyone, whether they realize it or not, knows what that looks like and has a general idea for how long then it takes them to strike the ball. And that seems to work very well with the goalkeepers, that, hey, if I can get them to start looking for, okay, this shooter's head has dropped, they've started to swing, they start to load, right? Usually it works really well that they're coming back down with balance as the ball's getting struck. And then we get that nice, really efficient movement where their first move is towards the ball. And hopefully that's that movement that we've been talking about, in the last one, this lateral movement, this sort of inverse movement where the second foot starts to move first. So it can really be efficient. So when you combine perfect set timing, which nobody gets to perfect, with good body shape plus efficient lateral movement, some really, really, really high level stuff starts to happen with your ability to make saves. No matter how hard it's kicked, right? Being able to keep shape, all that kind of stuff. Then when you throw into it, as I load, right? I'm up and then I'm down. If I can let that air out as I'm coming back down on the ground, then some really cool stuff starts to happen with being able to get the keepers to relax and make saves. Because relaxed is the key. There's probably no coaching cue I gave more often when I was working with pros every day than relax, breathe, relax. And that's when the cool stuff starts to happen. 30 seconds on that, Will, and then I want to talk about not going to talk about breath anymore. I think that covers it. I don't want to go into too much detail. I think they can figure that out. I do want to talk about arm swing and width, and that'll be kind of the last thing, because those are some things that seem to kind of vary widely across all different, continents and countries, and even players in the same leagues in the same country. So close out the last part just about timing and how you develop good timing, and then we'll segue into that.
Yeah, it takes conscious practice, I think, and a lot of it. I don't think I ever figured it out. I think maybe I got close a lot of the time, but it's something that you have to be thinking about all the time, because it's really easy to forget. I think you get caught up in things, and because your brain's going to do it no matter what. So it's not something
it's just going to do it late most of the time.
Right. So you'll still do it, and so that's why it's kind of easy, I think, to forget about. But you have to kind of remind yourself to you have to be in control of that timing, because you're the one that's used.
Yeah, for me, when I was a player, I always felt like, and when I was playing the off season, I was mostly at the USL level. There were some years there where the off season was short and off season was long, right? So you're going a long time without regular training. And for me, I always felt like it was always kind of this kind of cycle, this sort of up down wave that you're riding about, sharpness and set timing. Like if I was off for a while and not in team environment training with pros, seeing shots and training with a goalkeeper coach, right, then my timing was probably not very good. So always in preseason, it was like there was this 2 or 3 week period where I'm trying to get my timing back. I'm trying to get my timing back. And then once I got it, boom, then I didn't really have to think about it. And as long as I continued to train regularly at that point, which you're doing in a pro season, it just kind of stuck. Unless I hit like a rut and something didn't feel right, and then I would kind of take a couple steps back and start to revisit it and think through, okay, set. Great activity for this you can do, coaches, you can do. Players, it's a great one to do. You can even do it with your mom or dad or your brother or sister. Take however many soccer balls you got. If you got 3 soccer balls, 5 soccer balls, 8 soccer balls, line them up side by side. You go stand, 12, 15 yards away from those balls, maybe in a goal, maybe against the wall. It doesn't matter. You don't need a goal. Have somebody on those balls ready to shoot each one of those balls, okay? And we'll put a video up of this sometime so you can have a better idea. And just go through having that player that's going to shoot, fake shot and shoot randomly, right? So maybe they fake one time and shoot the next ball. And then when that ball's done and you've saved it, you move on to the second ball. And then they fake, and then they fake, and then they fake. And it's important that their fake looks like a real shot. They need to be stopping themselves just before they strike the ball. And so what you'll get an idea for in doing that is you'll start to feel how your body moves and how you actually set. Because even seeing it on video is not as helpful as actually being able to feel your set, most self-set, because the set happens so fast into the save or, not saving, getting scored on, whatever. But that's a great activity you can do. If you don't get that, I didn't explain it well, feel free to message us, reach out, and we can help you with that. we'll finish up real quick with hot topics here. So arm swing and set width. We'll talk about arm swing. Give me your 2 cents on arm swing, and then I'll talk about set width.
So the arm swing, I never did it. There's a couple of occasions where I think I did a little bit, but it was never a part of my set. And it's one of those things that if you watch the top leagues, and you'll see it, like,
especially in Europe.
Right. And so, I think as we've always talked about it, it's like, it works for them and it works for them. Like, they figured it out. They're not going to change the way they play, but is it the best way to start out and get yourself into that habit? Not so sure. And so the one thing I've thought about, and this is just a thought that was playing around in my head prior to recording today, and I'm not going to go much farther than this, but in terms of, so the one time I did catch myself doing that, it was we were training like medium height diving, and it was a pretty far dive with just one step. And I noticed that I was swinging and using that momentum to try and kind of propel myself forward. And I was wondering, and maybe it's just my personal trainer, strength and conditioning mind, but what that says about, potentially your single leg strength. If you feel the need that you need to add an arm swing to get yourself side to side, maybe your legs aren't as strong as they should be. And kind of going into another topic there, but that was just what was in my head today.
I think that's awesome, because I honestly think that in those countries where that's kind of taught as the standard, I think Germany, it's really popular in Germany. It's really popular in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries. I think in a lot of those countries, that's part of it, right? They're trying to add explosive power. And I agree with you. I think if we're trying to go from a straight, like, as the game evolves, whether it's heart rate monitors or GPSs, everything, and soccer's probably been one of the last sports to come to the table in terms of getting where they should be from a sports science, sports performance perspective. And I think especially goalkeeping. So many of the shapes and techniques in goalkeeping are they're just the way things have been done forever. And most of the time they're not good athletic shapes. They're not good, ways that you would, ways you wouldn't move. You wouldn't put your body in those positions in a gym to do something. You wouldn't put those bodies in your position like that, if you're going to run, jump, or, anything else. So I've tried to get away from whatever I felt was bad shapes. And I think that's kind of where you're going with the arm swing stuff. And again, we go back to the lateral movement, talking about not needing a big diagonal power step, right? Because we're shifting efficiently, and now we've got momentum from doing that, and our stepping leg, our front leg, is underneath us now. It's still underneath our shoulder, our armpit. That's where we're really explosive. That's where we're really powerful, and it's counterintuitive because we think that we need a big step to generate power. Actually, you need short, quick, under your body, right? Under your body weight, under your center of gravity as much as possible. That's where you're really springy and explosive. So I agree with you on that. I don't teach arm swing. Whenever I work with goalkeepers that are high level, that come from a different background, it's part of what they do. Again, I don't try to change it. I just want to open up the discussion with them about, okay, well, is this helping? Is it good for you? Does it work? And if it does, then they continue to do it. That's great. I think anytime your arms get back behind your body, you're going to be more prone to blocking or parrying than to catching. And I think it's going to be much easier also to immediately go into like an arcing dive, a dive where you're losing shape. And hey, in reflex moments, that's okay. On headers particularly, that's okay, right? Most of the time you're not going to keep great shape there, but I'm also just a big believer that good shape helps all the time. The longer you can keep good shape, better off you're going to be. The more chances you have to catch, the less balls on the ground, less rebounds, less corners, all good stuff. So I won't teach it, but even when I watch myself doing these little demo videos, I see that my arms pop back a little bit. I think everyone's do. And it's just a matter of being aware of it and kind of mindful of it. Last thing's about set width, and I think I just want to kind of touch on my kind of peeve from growing up, and I haven't seen this as much lately, but it was a really big deal when I was growing up. In some of these like mostly camp circuits. Everything in the 90s was camp circuits, right? It all Soccer Plus, Tony DeChico method was the cream of the crop, right? Up there with Dan Gaspar and Starr. Those were the best ones. They're doing really good stuff. And everything kind of trickled down to all the other camps, all the college camps, all the youth camps. So everyone was quite literally doing exactly the same thing in goalkeeping in the United States from a technique perspective. That has all since changed. I think for a positive way, everything's now, like I said, trending towards more athletic, more efficient movement. And we're also getting this influx of styles from all over the world. So it's definitely different now. But with that, there was this idea that you should set narrow, like to keep your feet from getting too wide, because I think naturally, again, a lot of goalkeepers naturally when they load, their feet pop wide. And so the idea, I guess, was to undo that. But what you found with the super narrow loading or narrow setting that they were encouraging was, guess what happened when they did that unconscious load that everybody does that we talked about? What happened with their super narrow feet?
Back to
yeah, they just went wide again, right? And as those feet were traveling that from inside to outside, I better put my hands on the wheel. Sorry. That was again wasted time, okay? Because your feet are now having to move again, because it's always going to trend back to how the athlete naturally moves. I think if they naturally have a tendency to set super duper wide, like way outside their shoulders, maybe it's something you need to work on with them to try to get them closer to underneath their shoulders. But I also kind of have found in my experience that when you're working with like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", massive goalkeepers, they for whatever reason do set a little bit wider, and I think that's okay as long as it's not hurting anything and they're still able to move efficiently and they can do that lateral footwork that we've talked about and shown, and it works. Then I think that's okay. So that's more or less all I had to say about width. Is there anything you've ever thought about that stuff, or you just kind of have set where you've set from a width perspective?
So growing up, when I was becoming aware of all this stuff, I think I had one of the issue of setting narrow and then, going wide once I loaded. And eventually, I kind of beat it out of myself, and I was able to just maintain that same distance between my feet when I would set and load. But I liked watching Joe Hart growing up, and he had a really wide net. And I was thinking about that today, and having your feet wider than your shoulders. I feel like one of two things has to happen. You either have to, when you go to dive, you have to shift your weight, over the middle of your foot so that you can go. Your foot has to then come back towards the middle so you can push.
Yeah. And that's what happens. This goes back to the lateral movement stuff we talked about, finding more efficient lateral movement. And this is the reason for getting away from the way we all learned with the first leg stepping. As soon as that first leg steps into a dive, your width again goes super wide, and what you're talking about has to happen, right? And a lot of times you'll even see when that happens, you'll see these kind of half dives. I think even the guys at TKI, the Keeper Institute, did such an awesome job, and I think their content is among the best out there. They actually kind of teach that as a technique. They call it the swipe, where you reach off your back leg and kind of push. And for me, I do think those happen organically, but I think those movements happen organically because of a fault in our movement. And listen, the best saves you ever make are not going to be technical saves. They're going to be improvisation. When I talk about all this stuff and all this technique stuff, I'm talking about it from this is the way we're going to try to train it so we can move a little more efficiently. The best keepers are still going to find ways to make saves in unorthodox ways, and that's what separates the best from everybody else. But we got to have that base and foundation. So I debowed your width thing. Anything else on that?
No, that was it.
All right. Cool. So we got to be getting close to an hour. We're still on our Zoom meeting, so they didn't kick us off, so that's great. Coming up, episode 4, we're going to have our first MLS goalkeeper guest. He told me I could say it, so I put a little teaser out on social media. I'm not gonna announce his name until later, but here's your little Easter egg nugget if you've made it this far. Evan Bush from the Montreal Impact, my former teammate, is going to be our guest next time. So I don't know totally what we're going to get into just yet, but we'll talk a little bit about Evan and experience. I love his story because he's a guy that started off great college program career at Akron, and then played at the USL minor league level, whatever you want to call it, NASL level. It's changed so much over the years for a couple of years, and then kind of got his way into MLS. And since then, has had a great career, mostly as a starter, and he's done a really great job. And he's a real positive figure for the community of Montreal, and just an awesome guy, and just such a humble, low-key family dude, and a really, really good goalkeeper, and also part of the A team, Aviata, which I helped him get in there. I didn't help him, but he asked me about it, and that's how I got to wearing them. So that's coming up. Will, go ahead and plug your socials, plug your training stuff, and then I'll plug mine, and then we'll get out of here.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at willmarshall_1. My website and my blog is URL is marshallfitness.shop. And yeah, I'm always available on Instagram, pretty responsive, so I'm on there all the time. So I mean, reach out with any questions you may have.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. So check out Marshall Fitness and message Will if you want to get. He's got this body weight program out. How much is it? Like $20?
$20, yeah.
Yeah, and listen, we're not trying to. I want to be very clear. We're not trying to make money off of this. But Will, that is his business. That is his livelihood. So if you're looking for a good, legit program, I think it's incredible value, and Will knows what he's doing. He's really passionate and committed and knowledgeable about this stuff. So great stuff, especially for goalkeepers. I think body weight strength is so important. But our aim at GK4FREE is everything is free, right? We're not trying to make money off of this. There is no end game. This is not a business model. This is us trying to put great content out there, great information out there that will help goalkeepers from the beginner level to the pro level find little nuggets of information that will help them get better. To reach that one goalkeeper out there that maybe has no access to training or coaching, we can give them something that maybe gives them an opportunity. That's our whole goal here. That's what I'm pumped and excited about. If we help one person, that's it. That does it. That changes everything. So like what you're seeing, share what you're seeing, share with your coaches, your goalkeeper coach, your team coach, your soccer mom, your team manager, your friend, you name it. Share it if you like it. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you find it so you can keep up to date. Go check out my socials. I've got tons of content up, putting tutorial videos out for all the stuff we talk about here. Twitter, Hunt Gilstrap, Instagram, Hunt Gilstrap, TikTok, Hunt Gilstrap. I'm still bad at that, but getting a little bit better. Facebook, Hunter Gilstrap, and YouTube, search Hunter Gilstrap. I'm working on getting that URL changed, but I cannot figure it out. So thanks for bearing with us. We love you guys, and we appreciate your time with us. We hope that this was helpful today. We're also going to work on coming up with some kind of clever sign-off because we got to do a better job with that. Will, thank you for your time. I always appreciate everything you do. Thank you guys for going for a ride with me this afternoon on my way home from work. Will, take us home.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you all next week.
All right. Thanks, guys. GK4FREE out. We'll see ya.